Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our buddy Travis from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. They're digitally recording this for high-definition showing on their website or on your local public access channel. And the reason why they're here, it's time for a Wood County update. Wood County Board Chairman Doug Machon joins us on this beautiful Wednesday morning. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Carl.
Okay. Well, you and I were talking in pre-show, and you brought up a good point. You wanted to address something, and I think it would be offer a nice perspective. We recently had the mayor here during his monthly report, and the reaction to the vote from the failure for the Common Council of Wisconsin Rapids to rezone the property that you folks wanted to sell to the city that would be rezoned into this housing complex, apartment complex, and fairly high-end
market rate rental. Yep.
Yeah, market rate rental, aimed at young professionals and like that are looking for. So, from Wood County's perspective, now that was shut down, what does that do for you folks?
Well, number one, it disappointed me. I was greatly disappointed by the vote by the council. Besides the initial impact of the sale of the property, which in the broader perspective isn't a great deal of money, it's about $120,000, I believe the sale price was. But when you look at the development of that property by a developer and what they're looking at doing, you're looking at a pretty good impact to not only the county, but the city as well as the school district in tax revenue. If you're looking at approximately, and I believe the scope of the project was somewhere around $3.5 to $4 million. Well, at that rate, you're looking at, for the county alone, that's an additional almost $21,000 in tax revenue. For the city, it's almost $50,000. And that's not including the school district, but totally you're looking at around $115,000 in tax revenue from that development. Again, there's no incentives to that housing. That was a market rate. Those were fairly, I don't want to say high end because I'm not exactly sure how they would be classified from a real estate standpoint, but those are market value rental units, no incentives. Those are exactly what you said, probably young professionals. We've identified a housing need in a city, and I'm talking from the county, so I may be wearing a different hat here, but Wisconsin Rapids is part of Wood County, and I'm concerned about what goes on in Wood County, and I'm concerned particularly what goes on the west side. A shot in the arm for the west side like that, bringing in some people for the businesses on the west side, I don't know how it can be a bad thing.
Okay.
I struggle with what some of the council people were thinking on that vote, and hopefully they can take another look at it and maybe get another shot at it down the road.
In the meantime, what will be Wood County's attitude, or will you be trying to continue selling the property?
Well, right now, the sale is still pending, but there was a contingency in the sale regarding the rezoning. So, and I believe what I've heard from our zoning director is that the developer is willing to sit down with some of the people that were objecting to the development there and have some talks and come to an understanding, and so that everyone's on the same page and there's no miscommunication. Everyone's up front knows what's going to be planned for there, what type of planning is. And I think the way I understand it is there's been some conciliation on the part of the developers to accommodate some of these requests or concerns. So I think we're probably in a good spot to be right now. I'm optimistic that the right thing will get done in the end.
Okay. And this is the Memorial Day holiday weekend that's fast approaching, the unofficial start of the summer season. And Wood County is fortunate. They have a number of beautiful camping facilities in Wood County, including here in the Wisconsin Rapids area. I'm thinking like Lake Wazeecha. These places are going to be packed. What are you hearing about what the summer season is looking like for Wood County this year?
Well, I think it'll be good as usual. I think we continue to make improvements. South Park is probably one of our gems in the county. If you've been out there lately, you might see some work that's been taking place at the White Sand Beach. We're doing some retaining wall work there. That's part of actually that's being partially funded by state grant money. So we've really done some good things with that. Our Parks Department has looked into some grants to pay for half of the cost of that, which is a good thing. That's a big project. We were having some erosion problems on that hill there at the White Sand, so that'll prevent any further of that. Down the road, we're looking at possibly a rebuild of the shelter house there at White Sand. There's going to be one of the toilet facilities is going to be rebuilt there. We're always looking at improving South Park. It's one of our gems, like I said.
And it's used heavily. Pam and I on this past Sunday walking on that side directly across from Red Sands Beach, walk by the Frisbee golf and everything else. And there were a lot of people out enjoying a beautiful day. I mean, families, and a lot of it were in families, young families and the like. This is the kind of quality of life investments that people are expecting, and especially young families now that they're on a tight budget. Hey, let's go to a park and ride our bikes around or walk or what.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many laps I've done around the lake. Probably Travis's mom could probably have done more laps than I have around that lake. But I've run lots of times. I used to run with my daughter around that lake. When I go out there, and now I bike it quite a bit with my wife, and the use that I expressed to you earlier, that path, that walking, biking path around Lake Wazeecha is probably one of the best things we ever did. The utilization of that is fantastic. And that should tell people a little bit about what we're looking for. And I think you really mentioned it. You mentioned it and hit it on the head, and I didn't really realize it till you just said it. But when I go out there, it is young families. When you look at that, when I go by White Sand Beach when I'm running or biking, and I come through that playground area at the beginning at White Sand, that's what it is. It's young families with kids, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, and they like it.
Yeah, and it's something when you talk about selling Wood County to people, attracting business or individuals to Wood County, that's something you can show, whether that's Park, North Wood County Park, like Dexter, like NEPCO. I mean, we have some assets as a county that a lot of counties in Wisconsin would die. I mean, they would. Yeah. They're probably envious.
Yes, they wish they had them a lot of places, and we're very proud. We're very proud of that. I mean, our park systems are great. It's and I think that going back to the city for a bit, what the city's done is great. We talked about it earlier. When the final improvements on the bike path are done on the Buren end, you're going to be able to ride your bike from Buren to Nakusa without ever going on a road. That's a big deal. It's a big deal for an old guy like me because I don't want to ride my bike on the road because I'm probably going to end up getting squashed. And so from a safety factor, that's the kind of trails I like to ride with my wife. If you're a parent, I'm sure that's the kind of trails you want your kids to be able to ride. If your kid's going to ride from Port Edwards to Wisconsin Rapids, even to visit a friend or something, they have a safe route to do that on.
And it can also be a tourist attraction,
Absolutely.
Much like the Elroy Sparta Trail has become, because people are looking for a safe bike path and it's safe and scenic along a river.
Absolutely, and that's one of the selling points of it. It really is quite scenic. It goes through the zoo. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of aspects that are very positive about that bike trail. And again, the bike trail through the city to Nakusa and up into the Buren area now is a big selling point. I think we could market that probably in a better way. You know, have a trail name like Point has their green circle, and every little trail stretch in there probably is named differently, but it's a pretty long run when you look at it from a biking perspective. That's a pretty good stretch of mileage to ride. Mm-hmm. And some of the shorter routes on the Elroy are shorter trails. Not everybody can ride 50 miles.
No. If you're just joining us on the Morning Magazine, welcome. We're getting our Wood County update from Wood County Board Chairman Doug Machon. Doug, in your first show with us as the new Wood County Board Chairman, you said that you wanted to have an open door policy to everyone. How's that going?
Pretty good. So it depends on what day it is. Some days I want to shut the door. Not because I don't want to talk to people, but sometimes it's a little. Sometimes I find myself either coming in early before people start to come to the courthouse, or staying late when the doors are locked to actually be able to address the work that I really need to get done. We're still working hard on the budget, and we're looking at capital expenditures right now, and I can get into the middle of that and somebody stops by, and that's okay. That's fine. I encourage that. The department heads, many of the department heads have felt free to come in, and I encourage that. I want to talk to those people. I don't want them to ever think that they can't talk to me about something that's important to them, as well as constituents. I've had many constituents drop by as well, and I want to continue that. I don't know that everybody always gets the answers they want to hear, but they're always going to get a straight answer from me. It's going to be what I'm thinking. It's going to be factual, and that.
What are some of the issues that have been brought up to you so far?
Well, a lot of it's we're talking budget right now.
Okay, let's talk about that.
And so we're talking about capital expenditures. So from a department head standpoint, we're looking at things that, do we really need this year? Can we put it off for a year? How critical is this issue as far as big hitters? If you're looking at stuff that's going to be in hundreds of thousands of dollars, you want to take a careful look at that kind of stuff.
What are some of your priorities?
Well,
in this process,
one of my priorities. Well, of course, highways is always something that you have to take a look at. And, that's a real big hitter, and so we want to make sure that we appropriate the amount that needs to be there to take care of our roads. Courthouse security is a big deal with me. I think we're probably a little bit behind on that, and I think it's something that we really need to address.
What areas of security at the courthouse?
I think number one is access to the courthouse. As far as anybody can walk in the courthouse any time of day, it's free and clear. If you go up to Marathon County, you're going to have a tough time getting in the courthouse because there's a metal detector at the door. I know I personally carry a pocket knife, so every time I go in Marathon County courthouse, I learned really quickly the first day. I said, I got a pocket knife I always carry. Can I get to? You'd be better off, sir, if you just take that back to your truck. Okay. So now when I go to Marathon County, my pocket knife comes out and goes in the seat of the truck till I get out. It's not a big deal. I'm not going in there to attack anyone. But the fact is, I've learned, and you don't do that. We don't have things that simple. I know it bothers the judges. I know the judges are very concerned about courthouse security, rightfully so. They would probably be one of the main targets if anybody did choose to do so. So that's a priority for me, and that is a big ticket item. If you're going to do it right, that's going to cost you some money.
Okay, so what would you like to see done in the area of courthouse security?
Well, I think number one, I think the first thing we got to do is secure the front door, the front general access. I think that can be done relatively easily and with moderate expense. I don't think that we have to put an armored truck out front. Mm-hmm. I think we can monitor access to the building fairly, and we're looking at some plans right now. Initially looking at some plans that we're going to see where it goes, and if the judges are on board with it, maybe we'll do that. I'd like to get going on it next year. I'd like to put some money in the budget for it next year. I'm not sure how much it's going to be. We had some initial estimates that were very high. We had a plan that passed on the county board a month ago that the total cost on it was around $5 million, totally spanned out over a number of years. I want to do something initially that shows we're concerned, that has an impact, and that we can build off of, and we won't have to go back and redo. So,
are you working with the sheriff's department at all? And since the jail,
we will be. Right now we're working mostly with the judges, and I'm talking to the maintenance director to see what kind of items, what kind of infrastructure it would take, and how much that would cost. And then we're working with the judges to see what we're mandated, if there are some mandates involved in that, and to see what we have to have and what we can replace that with if we have that option. So,
what about the river block building?
And that's part of it too. The river block building has some security in place now. There are certain areas of the river block that have limited access. You have to have special cards to get in. But that's one thing we want to look at too. It's probably a little bit more advanced than the courthouse, but it will have to be addressed eventually too. If you're going to do one, you're going to have to do them both. And I'm more comfortable with the security that's in place at River Block right now for the time being than I am at the courthouse.
And if you look at the two of them, you would obviously be the courthouse should be the priority, and bring
because
that. And especially if the judges have concerns, then
Absolutely.
you need to address that.
Yeah,
you need
absolutely.
to address that.
Absolutely, and that's something that we want to take care of.
Wood County did go through budgeting and financing to improve its roads, because it wasn't going to, if the longer you wait on maintenance, the more expensive it gets down the line.
Absolutely.
In your view, how are we in that area in terms of road maintenance now? Have we caught up where we needed to be caught up, or are there still things that need to be done?
We're getting close. We're getting real close. I think our outgoing highway commissioner, Doug Pasnow, would tell you that we probably made greater strides towards improving that than we anticipated in the first couple of years of our bonding program. I think we're getting to the end. I'm hopeful that this year, and who knows what the future holds. I'm hopeful that this year may be our last year that we really have to bond for road issues. I'm hoping that if we get the levy that we need from the proper sources, that we'll be able to maybe take that back to levy where it belongs, and GTA, our funding from our state, that it would be enough. That's going to require a closer look at overall budgeting in the highway department, but that'll be the task for our HERC committee.
Okay. Are there reforms that we need to look at in terms when it comes to spending money in Wood County, in your view, or something that you'd like to see initiated or looked at in terms of how we allocate taxpayers' resources?
Yeah, I think we're gonna. I think the way I do things personally is going to be a little bit different. The way I want to direct things is going to be a little bit different than our former executive committee chairs. The outcome's going to be a little different. I don't know that it's going to be drastic. You have to take little steps when you're dealing with issues like that. Sometimes there are some things I'd like to begin to incorporate. I have some ideas, and I really don't want to talk about them right now until we get them firmed up. But there's some changes that are going to be coming. We don't have centralized purchasing for the county. We have a lot of buildings out there. We don't have centralized purchasing. We don't have centralized accounting. Those are things that kind of bother me, that when you have an operation that's doing $110 million a year budget, those things seem to be no-brainers to me, but we're not there.
Does that require maybe an updating of infrastructure in terms of computers or?
No, I don't think either one of them would be that big of a deal.
Okay.
It might be more of a manpower thing, and I don't think it would be drastic. It certainly would be an organizational change, and we'd have to make sure we have things lined up properly. We're not going to do anything without thinking it through completely. But it's been on the table before. I don't think it's been given its probably due, and I think we're going to look into those things a little bit closer. I'd like to also, I'd like to see some initiatives within the county for renewable energy and things like that. That where we can have departments come to us with ideas for sustainable and renewable projects and have a pot of money, not a big pot of money to start with, until we see what it does. And if they have a good idea for that type of stuff, sustainable and renewable, that we take a look at it as a committee or as a county board, and we say, yeah, that's a good idea. We'll give you $25,000 for that project, or we'll give you $50,000 for that project. Do it and see what happens.
Are you looking at something that, for instance, that would reduce your other fuel costs? There
has to be a payback. I mean, that's the point of renewables and sustainables, is you get some kind of a payback. That's another thing where I think we've been lax at. A lot of times, if you're doing some building and remodeling, we've done a lot of it, you tend to throw those things out because they're cost intensive in the beginning. But I don't know that we take a really good look at the payback. And I think some of the paybacks nowadays are quick enough and good enough that it's foolish not to do them.
Well, you look at the city of Wisconsin Rapids and what happened at the library.
Great project.
And they've actually there have been times when they're selling or their electricity back to the city is actually helping to power homes in the city.
When the power companies work in Madison to lobby against paying customers that are providing returning energy to their system, then you know that things must be working pretty good.
Tonight, the folks can go to the Griffith Park. To the park, on Griffith, Nepco Lake Park, and there's going to be the public meeting. The second one give the public a report on what they said in the survey and the park survey, and like, what do you hope happens long term with the parks? We talked about at the start of our segment today. They're a gem for Wood County, but you got to maintain them, and you got to make sure you're meeting customers' needs, and then you got the Powers Bluff long-term plans.
Yep.
What are your priorities in that?
Well, they have to be. I see them hopefully being economic drivers, and you can look at that in several ways. You talked about young professionals and quality of life and things that those people are looking for, places where they want to live. I talk to all kinds of millennials, and one of the first things they tell me is they don't chase a job anywhere. They don't chase jobs. They decide where they want to live, and then they worry about working. So if that's the case, then we have to make it a place that they want to live, and the parks are a big part of that. Nobody's going to hand you a line on that one. That's a part of it. So I think that in that sense they become economic drivers because they attract people. And if you have people, you attract business, and
some of these millennials are going to be business people.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing, and I've talked to the mayor about this, it's not so much the taxes anymore. Mm-hmm. It's about the overall lifestyle of a particular area, because they're looking at, can I recruit people for my job openings if I locate in this area?
Absolutely. That's a big deal. And if you don't, if you're looking at, say, for instance, you're looking at engineers, and you're looking at young engineers, and they make a pretty good living. Taxes might not be as big a deal. I have a stepdaughter and son-in-law that just bought a house in New Berlin, very high-end district in Milwaukee. They got good jobs. They chose to live there. They could have lived cheaper somewhere else. They could have done things, but they have a young child now. They wanted quality life. They are perfectly willing to pay that to live there. That's
going to be a changing dynamic in how governing bodies like Wood County Board address some of these issues.
You got it. That's exactly it, and that's the problem. I see that as you're describing what happened on the rezoning issue. There has to be a change in thinking. There's a change of thinking in culture out there already. It's about changing the culture that exists here sometimes to get people to think a little bit differently. Sometimes that's harder than you would think.
Well, as always, I appreciate the time. I look forward to our future discussion next month. Any final words before I let you go?
I would like to give. There's some good things happening in Wood County that I'd like to talk about. One of the things is our child support agency just got an award, an excellence award from the state. I believe it's the second year in a row, and that's a big deal. Very efficient organization run by a guy named Brent Bruwink. Does a great job there. Second year in a row they won the award. Only 17 counties, I believe, met the federal standards for that. And I'd just like to give a shout out to those guys. We got a lot of people that do good work for the county, and that's one of them right there.
Okay. Well, as always, we appreciate your time and all the good work done by our Wood County employees, and we'll talk again next month. Have a good Memorial Day holiday.
You too.
That's Wood County Board Chairman Doug Machon, and that's going to wrap up his monthly report in part one of the Morning Magazine. The Morning Magazine, as always, is brought to you by Comfort Air.